Hey, spectators, thanks for joining. Big week for Bay Area sports as we had NHL and NBA drafts to look back and analyze. And for this podcast, we celebrate a big milestone, but also look ahead to reshaping the format of the show. All this and more. Just gotta sit through the music. It's good to be here on Silicon Sports Spectator. Can you believe we've been having this show for about 6 months now? I learned a lot in that time, and I thank you for your support. It's been absolutely a blast to do this. It's just been a fun hobby. It's been a good skill. I even have talked about it a little bit in my professional life, and it's interesting because it's really helped my career. People really are interested in a professional sense that I'm doing this. We'll have to keep this up, but always looking to improve too. I know I've solicited feedback from a lot of our regular listeners. Thank you for your candid feedback. I thank you for always tuning in and giving me ideas for the show. So thank you very much. As I've stated with this show before, I'm certainly not trying to make money off of this. At least not yet. If someone comes knocking, we'll talk about it. But, I'm not obsessed with the numbers or anything like that. Most of my recurrent audience is friends and family. That's fine. I've certainly gotten some other interests from different groups, and as friends spread the word and everything like that, we've just had this organic growth. So still kind of waiting for that algorithm to kick in and so forth. But it's just been good that having steady, regular posts, that is probably what the algorithm most favorably looks at. And, I'll figure out all the stuff like keywords and art and all that jazz. And it certainly there is a big push in the industry to do video content, which obviously I'm not. I'm just doing audio content at this time. But we'll see. That may change in the future. I don't know, kind of adds a whole nother level of dimension and commitment that, at least for right now, I just enjoy just the audio work. And like I say, if I'm not trying to make money off of it, and this is easy enough, I think this is the level of commitment that I'm willing to put in at this time. What I'm going to do, though, starting at least maybe this will be a short-term experiment. I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes. But I'm going to shift the format a little bit. Let me talk about my reasoning why, in case you're interested. I've been happy with how the show has been going, but as you know, it's kind of been, like a weekly, mostly catch up on local sports headlines. Wasn't exactly my vision for this podcast. I thought I'd kind of dive into more local stories, and I've tried to focus that at least from a news perspective, but also, I'd love to, be able to get in review businesses and like restaurants or venues and different events, special events that are happening. Love to get a chance, and maybe even the possibility of even getting credentialed. We'll see. I think there's still time for us to go that route. But what I didn't like was in being kind of news heavy in a weekly format. I would honestly feel like even in a week, I'd be reporting on news that seemed old. A perfect example of this is, so today I record on Thursday, July 3rd. So it's been 4 or 5 days since the NBA draft? Yeah, 4 or 5 from the NHL draft, 5 or 6 days from the NBA draft. And doesn't that seem like a lifetime ago? I won't say it's old news. We can still kind of talk about it and so forth, and I will. But I don't want certainly my audience to rely on that as who did the Warriors draft? And here we are a week later. Well, we could tell you exactly. And so this is really where I would welcome your opinion. It's true. Maybe you just like the discussion, kind of water cooler talk about it. That's fine too. But, do you get value out of it? For me, as I was reporting it, I just felt like, especially in a world where that instant information is so readily available and desirable, it felt like I was coming to it very late. So let me know your thoughts on that. But truly, leave a comment. If you're on Spotify, check out and be sure to subscribe to my show on Spotify. But also, I'll put up a poll there too, just to kind of get your feedback about this change in format, about what features that you like especially. So about this change in format, I'll kind of go through it slowly today in the sense of I'll explain each section as we go. But really, I'm going to kind of cover the same types of topics that I always have. I'm kind of reorganizing them. Before I kind of just went sport by sport, team by team, rattle down the list. Now I'm going to kind of group them a little bit differently. So again, you might get the same news items, but I think how I'll shift it up is kind of break it in different sections. And this is where, again, maybe this doesn't matter at all to you. I'm probably overthinking this. But yeah, I'll start off with an intro, just like I'm doing now. I'll get into a section called what I'm going to call good news, bad news. And that's just news around the different clubs, different sports teams in our area. the focus will remain, of course, on all things Bay Area and Silicon Valley sports. So good news, bad news, just things that I saw that are both positive and negative. We'll see where that goes. I'll also have a special section on sports business, and that will be focused just on player transactions, team news, events that are coming up, just the business side. Or if there's even things happening at the league level or anything sports related. This just happens to be a big interest of mine sports-wise, and some of my professional life occasionally touches that as well. So I get some good information there at times. Also, maybe it's a new feature. It's something that I've touched on this before, just in different stories, but this is probably an area that I've gotten the most positive feedback in, and I want to formalize it. And that's an area of just like nostalgic storytelling and just looking back on old funny stories, memories, maybe a player or a team from the past that maybe we've forgotten about, but through Bay Area legend and lore that we can revisit some of those. So we'll do that as an official segment each week. And lastly, we'll just look ahead. What's on the horizon? What events, what games are taking place that are really going to capture our attention? Is there a special event in town that maybe you should look for tickets to, or maybe I heard about a special promotion that might be of interest to you, especially in the Bay Area? We'll talk about all those things. Another reason for this too is, I think I've talked about this before in earlier episodes, or because you just might know me, my favorite sports show is ESPN's Pardon the Interruption, a show that's been going on for nearly 25 years, led by two professional journalists. They just do a great job of, rapid fire, checking the news, but then they sort of have a playful way of looking at it. And what I've always liked was not so much the news aspect, but the stories that they brought along with it. So I'm really inspired kind of by that. And I like that format of these kind of bundled segments together. So that's where this inspiring this change a little bit. You let me know. Truly, I really welcome that feedback. Maybe we'll go just back straight to the old way. Maybe you want it to be a comic show. I don't know. What's important to you? Oh, I will say though, too, is that, one addition to the show is, as you know, I've done a couple of interview shows, like bonus episodes where I've interviewed a special guest and so forth. And I'm very fortunate that, again, I've just done that with a couple of friends and so forth who have great connections to the sports industry. And that's exactly what I hope to kind of redo, both friends, but also calling on some of my professional connections, or even perhaps down the road, again, just making connection to Bay Area athletes, leaders, business owners, all those, people that I might not have a direct connection to, but as this podcast grows, I could use that as a credible introduction to getting those. I don't think our podcast numbers are quite there yet, but I'm optimistic that we can grow this a little bit. And once in doing that, then we can see where it goes. So let's dive in to our newly formatted Silicon Sports Spectator. And thus we begin with, let's start with our good news. I'm an optimist, so we always start. If given the choice between good news and bad news, I always choose give me the good news first. And today, in fact, was a wonderful bit of good news. Was I got to attend the Sharks prospect scrimmage. Now, this is just a unimportant, insignificant, meaningless game, right? It's purely for the fans. We go out. This is at Texie Arena where the San Jose Barracuda play. So it's a small environment, cheap tickets. I think it was $20, $25. Midday game in the middle of the week. I had this week off, so it was a nice way to spend my time. I went to this last year, got to see Macklin Celebrini the first time in his Sharks uniform, Will Smith as well. And this year, got to see the likes of Michael Misa, first round draft pick from this year. It just increased that optimism that I had. Great to seeing these new young pieces. It's hard to tell, from this little scrimmage, but there were some cool highlights, and I'll share some of those. I won't go into a ton of depth or analysis into it. It's not really I don't think what that game is designed, but other than it was cool to see some of these names. Specifically about Michael Misa, who was our first round draft pick. I thought he played a really strong game. He looked like one of the best skaters on the ice, which he probably should be. He showed up and looked like one of the best players. I know in his very first shift, he tallied an assist in this prospect scrimmage, just looked really, really strong as a playmaker. In particular, he was paired with another star prospect, Igor Chernisov, and the two of them were paired together all throughout the game, and that just looked like a very smart pairing. Two very confident, offensive-minded skaters, forward specifically. They played well together. They seem to have good chemistry. I'm anxious to see where that goes. It's still undetermined if Misa is going to play NCAAs next year. I know it was something he was considering. It's probably going to be his best bet. I don't think he's going to make the Sharks roster year one. The Macklin Celebrini thing from last year where he comes straight out of 1 year of college into the pros and excels as a pro, that's a rarity, honestly. Macklin was the youngest player in the NHL last year, but usually, these teenagers will have to play, a couple of years in some lower level system, whether it's the NCAAs. The advantage there is that the skill level is perhaps a broader range, maybe not the highest levels, but you're also playing against more mature men just in terms of age and physicality, players that are, up to 22. Whereas you're playing Canadian juniors, for example, you're just playing the elite 17, 18, 19-year-olds for the most part. Now, a league like the AHL, where the San Jose Barracuda play, that's kind of your highest level minor league. And this is where guys are on the verge of getting into the NHL. That's where the NHL usually will go first. If they need to call someone up, they're calling the AHL. If someone completes their collegiate year, that may come as a next pool. But otherwise, it's just usually at that AHL level is where we're calling up guys into the NHL during the year. So whether that's for injury reasons or for someone gets injured at the NHL level, you call a prospect from the AHL to fill that hole. Or, hey, just performance-wise, you've really shown that you're above and beyond the AHL level, or we just want to give you a chance at the NHL level. That can happen too. But anyways, long story short, with the Sharks prospect game today, you got to see a lot of that young talent available. We have one of the highest rated prospect pools in all of the NHL. A lot of excitement there. Also want to give honorable mention to a couple of players from this scrimmage. Selected with the first pick in the second round of this year's draft, Simon Wang is a teenage defenseman from Beijing. He's an imposing 6'6" D-man with a lot of raw talent. He's likely to play college at Boston University next year, but fans are already loving his story. Next, I want to give a shout to Eric Polkamp. Eric starred in last year's prospect game and shined again this year. He netted a hat trick as an energetic defenseman. He's committed to play again at University of Denver this next year, but he's a blast to watch. Lastly, an unexpected surprise. Landon Marleau was invited to the Sharks development camp this year and participated in this game. He's obviously the son of our beloved Patrick Marleau, and he has been playing in some lower level minor leagues in Canada. Let me tell you, Landon impressed me. I saw some bursts of speed and smart plays by him. Based off a small sample size, he probably won't crack the roster, but I was certainly glad to cheer him on for this event. And it also happens on a day, too, where the Sharks made a couple of really strong picks coming into free agency. And the Sharks had a really fortunate position where they had the largest amount of cap space to spend. In fact, they were below the salary minimum. So they actually had to get up to and sign some additional players. So it's a good position to be in. We have a lot of money to toss around. I doubt we were going to lose any bidding wars. But what's challenging for the Sharks is you had the worst record in the league the last couple of years. You were a couple of years away from being a real serious, consistent contender. And so players aren't as want to come to it. Some might like the opportunity to come to a team that's young and hungry and learning a lot, where you could be a leader, but other players want to win a cup right now. A perfect example of this is Brent Burns, the former San Jose Shark. Now he's turning 40, but still he still has value to an NHL club. There was rumors that the Sharks were interested in bringing him back on. I don't know if that's true or not. And again, he would have a role to play. His priorities probably in his career at this point, he would love to win a Stanley Cup. And thus, it was no surprise. It looks like he took less money to go to the Colorado Avalanche, who's a serious contender. He'd be a great addition to that team. It's a great signing for them if he has a year left or whatever. Now let's look at some of the other deals that didn't come our way. Now the biggest free agent name out there was forward Mitch Marner, formerly of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Very young, very consistent star performer in this league, likely to get his commanding top NHL dollar for his services. The Sharks could definitely afford him, and Again, I don't know exactly if we put out an official offer. Probably did. We probably made some phone calls, is my guess. Unfortunately, he ended up going to the Vegas Golden Knights, which kind of hurts because that means he's going to be a division rival now. So, I mean, congratulations both to their club and to Mitch Marner himself. But you can kind of see here that, again, who knows what his mentality and thinking this, but I'm just looking at the surface level, and it's like Vegas is a definite contender right now, and they've been a consistent winner for several years. It's probably a great place for him to land as a star. It really helps out that team immediately, and perhaps even puts them up into that next level. Now, other players too. For instance, I know one of the star defensemen that we really wanted was, you might know, Aaron Ekblad from the Florida Panthers, just won the second Stanley Cup in as many years. He was going to probably be the top available defenseman in all the league, the most desired. And I know that the Sharks did comment that they made inquiries there, probably made a very generous offer, but it looks like what Aaron did, his partner is like, look, I'm on this Stanley Cup winning team. We're on the verge of a dynasty. He and some of his other fellow free agents on the Panthers took less money to stay with the Panthers. I mean, smart on them. So this is Marchand, Sam Reinhart, and Ekblad all decided to stay with the Panthers, took less money to do so. And hey, you can't knock that at all. But the transactions that the Sharks did make, the ones that the couple players that they ended up getting, a defenseman, Dmitry Orlov. I love this pickup. Kind of an offensive-minded defenseman from the Carolina Hurricanes most recently. Love that pickup. And also just today that they signed off waivers, so just remaining 1 year on his deals, Nick Leddy, the defenseman from St. Louis Blues. Leddy's a great veteran defenseman, bigger guy, defensive, had a down year last year due to injuries. If he could pick up, it's kind of a low-risk signing for it, but again, gives us some great veteran leadership. I love those moves. I think it's exactly what we need. Kind of short-term deals, but good, impactful defensemen. Maybe two other quick transactions just to mention real quick that the Sharks made, and this is still all under this good news thing. Like, I think these are smart. Was locking down William Eklund to a 3-year extension. Such an important young piece in our both rebuild and part of our future. Locking him in for 3 years. I love it. He's been so impactful for us and has grown leaps and bounds. I can't emphasize that enough. It's probably a smaller transaction too, but it's worth noting that we made a very small trade acquiring Shane Bowers from the New Jersey Devils, but we traded Thomas Bordeleau. And Thomas Bordeleau, as you know, has been one of the most consistent and top-ranked prospects in our system, has been playing for the San Jose Barracuda the last few years, has been called up a couple of times, and done all right, actually, at the NHL level. Just hadn't proved enough to earn that consistent time in the NHL. And so I think this is kind of a win-win. Shane Bowers is not really a name that I know and not expecting much from him. In fact, he'll probably just be a piece that we'll send to the Barracuda, and Bordeleau goes off to the New Jersey Devils to get another look there. Maybe it just was, a time where we have so many young pieces and Bordeleau just didn't fit in, among them. So that's the good news coming out of the Sharks camp. The other quick good news I do want to highlight are from the Valkyries, who have had a couple of really strong games this past week. They beat the Chicago Sky and a big win over the Seattle Storm. Storm are one of the better teams in the league. We ended up beating them by 30 points. Just an absolute commanding win over that. And I think after that, I've started to see the Valkyries ranked higher and higher, as high as 5th as the top teams in the league. And, for an inaugural season, how unprecedented is that? We've already beaten the record for how many wins that a new franchise has won in its first season. So that's great. We have this winning record right now, currently at 9 wins, 7 losses as we speak. That's enough for a playoff spot right now. So liking where we are, some really strong performances. So I definitely keep the Valkyries in the good news section. And bad news. And I don't want to say this is always bad news, but maybe it's like cloudy news where maybe I'm not as excited. Rattling off a couple things here. So first off, the Warriors also just had their draft. Nothing spectacular. There's nothing wrong with what they did. In fact, they had 1 second-round pick. They ended up trading down, but getting 2 second-round picks. A couple of other minor transactions. So they ended up with these 2 draft picks. Not bad. They're just no big names, right? And so 2 picks we ended up taking. Alex Tui, forward out of Australia. And the pick that I really like is Will Richard from the championship Florida Gators. Actually, remember watching Will Richard play. He is an excellent two-way player. I love his defensive intensity as well as he's actually able to score. Kind of a good 3-and-D guy. Really thinks he has a place in this Steve Kerr system. But elsewhere with the Warriors too, we just locked down with contract extensions for Quentin Post and Guy Santos. So two important role players from our bench. Hopefully we'll get to see some more consistent minutes and additional growth from those guys. I really like those are two young pieces that have grown well in our system and have found a good maybe niche role right now, but something that they could still continue to build on, both of them. And who knows, maybe Will Richard and Alex Tui can follow in a similar pattern. But definitely, maybe I'll even talk about this in the nostalgia piece too, but an important one is that Kevon Looney, our starting center, he ends up going in free agency to the New Orleans Pelicans. We simply wish him the best. Does leave kind of a gaping hole in our roster. And this is where I think where some of the bad news happens or the pessimism sets in. And that is just the Warriors, aside from these couple of draft picks and stuff, like we haven't made any moves. We can have a lot to work with in terms of cap space and everything like that. But now again, you look back just from a couple months, but we just have another new hole in our squad. Something else we got to kind of patch up. And, I think one of the problems is right now is this big question, lingering question. We've been talking about it almost all year and every episode is what to do with Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga, very talented. What do we do with him? But does he even have a place in the Warriors, given our current personnel and such, or the kind of investment that he wants us to make right now? Does that match where we think he's at? And I think there is a mismatch there. As the NBA free agent market starts really getting fired up here this month in July, already seeing some big players on the move, some big transactions, all that's exciting. And I'm not expecting the Warriors to snag any huge names or make any huge deals. Their big deal last year was the Jimmy Butler trade, and that's an important piece. It has so far been very effective and impactful, but we know that the team is still incomplete. We need another piece, especially to compete with the likes of Oklahoma City and a very, very strong West. But the names that I've been hearing so far that have been linked to the Warriors have not been very exciting. Like I heard this interest in Dame Lillard, which sure, I love that, but again, that's at least one lost season and a bad contract and all this. Again, do we pass that up? Do we love the tandem of two of the best point guards of the era, on the same squad? I mean, maybe. I certainly don't dispute his talent or anything. Coming off a career-threatening injury late in his career, it's tough. Al Horford is another name that I heard. And Al Horford is a player I really like, but maybe too one-dimensional for what I think our team needs. Need more defense, need a little bit of youth. A talented player for sure, but I don't know. I'm less excited about it. If we can get him like on a super cheap deal, sure. I mean, to give us some depth. It's nothing like I'm too thrilled about. Now, there does seem to be a good market for Kuminga out there. Multiple teams. I've heard the Wizards, the Bulls, the Miami Heat have all been serious about a trade package. But this is such an important decision to be made because I think the result of that deal really will determine how we will fare, certainly in the short term. I think the Warriors right now aren't just looking for draft capital, but, a player that could fill in right away. I'm not sure what would be best. Anxious to see what Mike Dunleavy... But I'm anxious to see what Mike Dinwiddie can pull off here. Be monitoring that very closely and updating you here. I'm circling around a little bit, just some other negative news that I did want to touch on. The Giants struggling. They just won tonight. In fact, turned things around to even their series against the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is nice. But, just we look back the last couple of weeks, really since the Devers trade, the Giants have been struggling, inconsistent, and especially it's on the offensive side of the ball, surprisingly. Now, they did have a nice offensive performance tonight. I don't know, I'm feeling a little bit better about it, but I know as I was taking notes for it this week, it was high on my list of this is what I'm worried about these days. But again, some back-to-back games with some positive results, which is nice to see. But we can also see the Dodgers starting to creep away. I think we're currently 9 games behind them right now. It's a pretty big gap away from where it's been most of the season. We are right there with the Padres, but the Dodgers are starting to hit on all strides. Maybe that was expected, but again, I think we were hopeful, especially after a big splashy trade, that we would be able to close that gap a little bit. It hasn't quite happened yet. Last bit of negative news is that on the 49ers, that Deommodore Lenoir was arrested. Yes, in Los Angeles, one of our key pieces in our secondary for the Niners, arrested on an obstruction of justice charge. I won't go into a lot of the details. You can read the news reports about it. We'll see what comes about this in the courts, but just negative news and attention. We'll monitor it here. Yeah, you can kind of see the types of news that I'll include here in this bad news section. It's funny, actually, even just reading those bad news items, I could feel my emotions changing from like, oh, this very positive good news report to, here's some stressful negative, bits. And now I feel like the energy of this pod is just drained a bit. But let's bring it back up though. I'm going to shift gears to our next segment, and that's our sports business section. And I've already covered a lot of different transaction news and so forth. Usually I'd probably keep it in this section, but just to add a couple of more, we talked about the Sharks and the Warriors and some important things there. But additionally, I did want to call out the Valkyries continue to make a lot of moves. A lot of this coming out of Eurobasket, where, again, a lot of their players were overseas. The Eurobasket tournament ended up being won by Team Belgium. So top-ranked France, where we had two players, including Janelle Salon, did not make it to the finals. In fact, they were upset. But Team Belgium, featuring Valkyries player Julie Van Loo, ended up winning the title. So congratulations to them. However, said member of Team Belgium, Julie Van Loo, ends up all excited, flies back from Europe to a very hot and successful Valkyrie scene to find out that she had just been cut. After she flew all the way back, she gets the news that she is cut. Very hard. She took the high road and just saying, it's part of the game, part of the business. I think she understands. What I think this does give credit to is that in her absence during this time when a few players were away and roster spots opened up on the Valkyries and new opportunities emerged, people stood up and the Valkyries found a good chemistry and a good combination and team vibe even in that short amount of time. Whereas Julie Van Loo, a player that I really liked, had been inconsistent at. I feel as though she still has a place, or could have had a place on our team and been impactful. She's shown out that she can be, certainly. But there are roster limits in the WNBA, ones that are being challenged too. I should say, I know that the WNBA Players Association has brought this up as something that they are looking to possibly challenge or change, is can we get more roster spots on a team? I don't know if the economics allow for that, especially as the WNBA is also looking to add 3 or 4 new expansion teams the next couple of years. Well, that's great growth to see and all that. You think of the depth of the league and thinking, gosh, do we have another 36 to 48 roster spots available? Or yes, we'll definitely make that happen. Or maybe it'll give opportunities like Julie Van Loo even better opportunity to play. Now, unfortunately, what that did mean for the Valkyries is it did open up some good opportunities. That did allow us to bring back Letitia Ami here, who, as to no one's surprise, really shown up as a consistent player. Super impactful. She's been great. And it looks like we're going to be keeping her. We did waive, and this was the bigger surprise to me, we did waive Chloe Bibby, who I thought was so fantastic both ways during that time off. But I think when you're coming to fill in for Janelle Salon, and Janelle just has been our starting center and did so well in Eurobasket and everything. I mean, that's a void to fill. Bibby, to give her credit, absolutely did exactly that in those games away, and I thought certainly made enough impact to prove her case. Notably, though, too, the one I was pessimistic about, through no fault of her, not that she did anything bad, but just I thought she was going to get the short straw here, is Caitlin Chen. She remains on the Valkyries roster. She's been getting some important minutes and has been playing well in an off-the-bench role. I think especially as noteworthy as that her transition defense has been especially notable. She's able to create offense off of her good defense. I think that's exactly what Coach Nakase wants to see, and Caitlin Chen did exactly that. Certainly helps, too, that she's a fan favorite as well, too. All right, so those are the couple of sports biz items. Again, usually I probably would have tossed in some of those other transactions, but those were tied to news stories around the draft and everything, so I kind of kept them in those other sections. Who knows? We might not be as fluid, or maybe we will be more strict about these different segments in the future. But now let's switch gears and let me go to my nostalgia section. Again, this is looking back at some great stories. Here. First, I mentioned Kevon Looney earlier, and really I do bid him really, really well. He's absolutely one of my favorite players, one of the most important players behind Steph in our 2022 championship run. And you think like he's just kind of a defensive end. He's not putting up the flashy offensive stats. Of course, we can certainly look at his rebounding numbers, which are absolutely great. I think what's the even bigger impact that he had, his numbers against Dallas in the Western Conference Finals in that 2022 season were so incredible. He was the MVP of that series. Yes, Steph gets all the praise and everything, and we can't win without that. But Looney, defensive and offensive rebounding in that series, the numbers were incredible, and how many new opportunities that generated for us. It's not really seen on the offensive or in any statistical category. Again, Looney's the one that has to guard guys like Nikola Jokic, Rudy Gobert, and these incredibly challenging centers. And Looney's not a center really by build. He's a power forward, an undersized one. And just day in, day out, Looney showed consistent results, great rebounding numbers and defensive presence. I think it was almost the equivalent of about 3 seasons in a row. He didn't miss a game. 2 full seasons. We played the entire 82-game season, plus the playoffs, and then games on both before and after in the previous season. So whatever that crazy Iron Man streak that he had going was, a couple hundred games, Looney was just this power horse in there. So I'm happy for him as he takes this next step in his career. Be really tough to fill his shoes. And next on the nostalgia front, I did want to give a thoughtful remembrance to Dave Parker, former Oakland A's star. He just passed away this past week, and what was especially sad about it was he was, I think, a week away from getting that Hall of Fame nod. He just got voted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I don't think he unfortunately got the news before he passed away. So it's bittersweet in that regard, but what's nice is that how fond people are remembering him and celebrating him right now. Dave Parker, we got him in a trade with the Cincinnati Reds. Ended up signing with Oakland as part just in time for the 1988 season. So we ended up going to the World Series both in 88 and 89 with him. Of course, winning in 1989. And when you think of the Bash brothers of that era, McGuire and Canseco, and just how big and strong they were, I would say Dave Parker was even bigger, even stronger than both of those big lugs. So just imagine that fearsome offensive, power. Plus, he was an incredible right fielder, for us. I think mostly he DH'd for the A's during those years, but certainly was able to play. So Dave Parker, also known as the Cobra, what a wonderful career. I'm glad you're being celebrated. Congratulations on making the Hall and being fondly remembered here, as even though Oakland was just a small chapter in your really spectacular baseball career, it was an important one. Loved rooting for you. Rest in peace, friend. All right, I'll begin to wrap up the show here, but I'll quickly look ahead just to see what's coming up, what things are attracting our attention, what opportunities do you have as Bay Area sports fans coming up. And worth mentioning, just because we're right on the verge of 4th of July, you're probably wondering where there's a good place to watch the fireworks. In the past, I always loved going to A's games. I always thought, they always put on a great fireworks show. It's not an option anymore, obviously. Though for the first time ever, we're going to have fireworks at PayPal Park. How cool is that? Which I think was a little surprised by because we're right next to the airport and immediately next to it. And I'm thinking fireworks shooting off, airplanes coming in, I assume that's safe. So maybe it'll be a cool show for the arriving passengers as well. But that'll be one. The San Jose Giants are also offering a good fireworks weekend. So do check one of those out. Also, be sure to tune in to, and I can't believe I'm actually supporting this in any way, shape, or form, but on July 4th, the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest. I know, it's disgusting to watch. It's shameful. You feel guilty as this is being one of the low spots of Americana is that we're being known for competitive eating. But since San Jose State's alumni, and perhaps its most famous alum, Joey Chestnut, continues his incredible run, that I probably won't even watch, but I'm always happy anytime a San Jose State athlete gets recognized. And if this is what we got, this is what we got. Joey Chestnut going for, I think it's a 17th title there. That is a lot of hot dogs. And I feel guilty now from even transitioning, but I do have to show a very special plug is tomorrow. We are back with a bonus episode. So be sure to check out not only this week, but I'll record a bonus episode, get that up as soon as I can. But I'm doing an interview of a friend, kind of a perfect time. I'm calling her the sports and entertainment travel expert. Let's call it that. And she's someone that here at the midway point in the baseball season just completed her second baseball pilgrimage on her quest to visit all the parks. She went on an excursion, hit about, I don't know, I think it's like 6 or 8 parks. We'll hear all about her story and about that life. So tune into that episode. I think it'll be a really great conversation. She's one of my favorite people to enjoy sports with. So watch out for that episode coming soon. This concludes our new format episode. Let me know what you think. Please leave a comment. If you're on Spotify, check out my poll. Let me know what you think about these new segments, about content that's most valuable to you. I'm kind of unsure about how I like this too, but I'm going to listen back to it and going to check out your feedback, and we'll give it a shot for, I don't know, at least a month or so, see if we like this new format. Then else we can easily pivot back. Feedback is very valuable. So as always, subscribe, like, leave that comment, respond to that poll. All those things help this channel and allow me to bring you fan experience notes from all your Bay Area sports teams. With that, I am the Joe Machine, and this is Silicon Sports Spectator. We out.